Good morning, everybody. Wow, it's an early day today, definitely. I'm gonna be sipping on my Celsius today. But we're gonna be going over property management crash course 101 topics. Like, what is it that somebody who's a property manager can explain to somebody else as far as what is property management? How do you perform property management? What level of property management is going to be, some of the what are some of the levels of property management that that make sense for specifically New York City and Long Island, and what are some of the things that property manager sees that we can communicate to the regular person for them to kind of get an idea of what it takes to be a property manager as well. And then we'll talk about, flavors of property management, different styles of property management, and what really matters at the end of the day when it comes to property management. So I break it down into four things. I break property management down into bookkeeping, which is your income and your expenses. I break it down into maintenance and repairs. I break it down into leasing and documentation and compliance. So what it means by bookkeeping is basically, what are your day-to-day income and expenses? What are your, there's day-to-day income and expenses. There's the income that it brings into the property, depending on a condo, co-op, rental property, commercial property, ad hoc services, ancillary income, things like, parking income, bike storage income, storage unit income, good neighbor agreement income. If there's construction next door and you guys work out an agreement that, there's going to be $1,000, $2,000 a month coming in during the course of construction due to the inconvenience that it causes, or the extra costs now taken on by that, your building as a result of being next door to a building that's being constructed. Because there's increased rat activity, there's increased, cleaning costs and things like that, right? So there's all these sources of income that can happen in a property management perspective. So, registering the proper GL accounts in proper management software, and the expenses, anything from repairs and maintenance to utility bills, your water, sewer, gas, electric, telephone and internet as necessary, porter fees and wages, things of that nature, insurance, mortgage. Repairs and maintenance could be broken down into one of many different categories, like, fire safety, fire monitoring services, your regular trash and recycling supplies and things of those nature, cleaning supplies, appliances. These are the kinds of things that you could break down repairs and maintenance in a budget to kind of fine-tune the idea of what it means to run a property. So, and then, also in repairs and maintenance is capital projects, capital projections. What is it going to take to, replace this roof in 15, 20 years, getting a useful life, an idea of the useful life of, the property, so that you can scale your savings initiatives to get this property taken care of and planned for the future, right? Getting an accurate view of what it means to save for future capital expenses, and then having the money on hand to commit to those projects. So that takes care of bookkeeping, and repairs and maintenance, again, it all pretty much ties into bookkeeping, but the repairs and maintenance is being available 24/7, 365 days a year to take any and all forms of communication regarding any requested repairs, maintenance items, things to pay attention to, anything from a leaky faucet all the way up to there's a hole in the roof, or broken concrete, or there's a leak coming in from my window casing, or a sprinkler adjustment, things like that, right? Request for a sprinkler adjustment, or a leaking oil tank. These are just a few of the projects that we got going on right now. Or dryer replacement, washing machine replacement, some of the other things, request for moving in a dog, which is usually a tough one for landlords, and I get it, but sometimes landlords commit to that kind of stuff because they have a good tenant. So those cover, your repairs and maintenance, again, capital expenses, projecting future costs based on current market analysis. What would it take to replace a roof in 10 years, knowing that project costs are going up average 15 to 20% a year. We're talking building materials and labor, other things, special services, your emergencies, things like that, right? Repairs and maintenance being available for those kinds of emergencies. Some of the emergencies that have happened recently, February 2026, we had a basement flood out in Fort Greene. Costed about $9,000 for a professional remediation company to come in and pump out all the water out of the basement, and just, introduce dryer services, like air dehumidification services and surface water extraction tools to soak up all the water, all the residual water, and leave this basement as perfect as possible to where it was in its original dry condition. It cost about $9,000, but that's just how it goes. This property's like 60 by 100. I don't even know how big it is. I forget. But it's a small 6-unit building. You can only imagine how big. It's a brownstone. These properties aren't that huge, but these are the costs for emergency services, and it's a big bill, but it has to get paid. So that's some emergency work right there. Oil leak, kitchen sink leak. We had some piping, not cast irons. I forgot what kind of steel it is. Not corrugated steel. Some type of steel. I forgot what it's called, but it scales very. It's one of those pipes that over the course of 20, 30, 40 years, we're starting to see that this stuff is starting to get called in more often because there's clogs, or the interior scales, and now there's a narrow passage, and a small little lint collection clogs up the line. So we had about 40 feet replaced of this piping at a property. We got that taken care of. We decided to extend the scope of work to include more foot of pipe, knowing that in the near future you're most likely going to get a call. And again, that's something that we negotiated between the contractor and the homeowner and the tenant. Some other work, not necessarily an emergency, but I got a call over in Garden City about a month or two ago, and this was getting a $2 million house ready for a family member to move in, and some of the emergency work that was required to take care of the immediate issues, which stemmed from having perishable food and liquid available for rodents and rats and pests to eat. So it left the kitchen in a mess. It left the house in general a bit of a mess. It wasn't terrible, but it was one of those things where for a couple $100 you get one specific area cleaned, and then you chunk those kinds of projects out. So now you take care of one headache, it's gone. Now focus on another headache, like replacing your boiler, replacing your hot water tank, or performing the services necessary for your HVAC. to get things up and running. You could understand the systems and then get a whole general house deep clean. That way your family member can move in by, your August deadline, and you've chunked at least one portion of that stuff out per month. So we gave them some information, we gave them some good contacts, and sent them on their way. We didn't want to manage that kind of property anyway. This just, you see the expectations that people set. It's like $4,000 to replace a hot water tank. It's like, what more can you expect, right? These are the kinds of things that, you roll into repairs and maintenance, and being available 24/7 to take those calls and understand client needs, understand tenant needs, understand vendor needs. I got a text message last night. Hey, that proposal that you've been asking for since June 12th, we finally sat down and sent it over, and I'm bowling last night, so I'm like, yeah, I'll take a look at it last night. By the time I got home, I knocked out. I didn't have time for that. But I've recorded some more social media on the private side, on my personal side, and went to bed. I didn't have time for it, and then I'm on the road this morning, taking care of more issues. You want to hear what's going on today? Oh God, I have a construction crew that's finishing up a project that I've been told that the foreman does not know how to set a code on a lockbox. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I've never heard something like that in my life, but that's what it is. So, people get to pay for me to head over there and solve their problems. That's what it is. I mean, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's 6:30 now. But, if that's what it takes, sure, why not? Shit. And I'll go over there and I'll solve some problems. That's fine. As long as I get paid for it, I ain't got no problem with that. So these are the kinds of things that, sometimes you just got to wake up, smell the coffee, and move on and go ahead and get it done. Not a problem. Cool. Yeah, I'll take care of it. That's what I do for a living. So the other thing is leasing. Specifically in my business, and we're going to talk about different flavors of property management. What is it like to shop around for a property management company, and what is that going to look and feel like for an individual who's looking for it? Whether that's a condo co-op board, an individual company looking to third party out their internal property management services because they want to reduce headache or redundancy. And I've seen some shit shows out there. Oh God. Or your small mom and pop landlord, bigger company, you're running 20, 25 different properties, all the way up to, partnerships, dealing with multi-million-dollar real estate investments, portfolios. These are the kinds of things that, we go on these kinds of interviews monthly. We kind of see what people are doing and what is it that we could do to help them out, and how is it that we could have a meeting of the minds, and what is it that I could do with my flavor of management to have a meeting of the minds with a potential client. But leasing for me is working with the brokers in the field that are natural in that area. So, like you got your Douglas Ellimans, you got your Keller Williams, you got your private brokers who are, you got your Serhants and things like that, right? These are the people that we work with. I'm a licensed real estate broker, but I work with people in the field to offload that section of what can be perceived as a property management responsibility, leasing, so that I could focus on what happens every single day, which is repairs and maintenance, bookkeeping, getting people the accurate information that they need so that we can execute a certain phase of property management really, really well, which is what I have built over the last decade, is that system of literally perfect property management. Again, so we third party out all of the leasing and upleasing activities to free up the other sections of our property management company, to keep our teams focused, to keep me focused on doing what is the most valuable part, in my opinion, of property management. So the leasing aspect is basically getting tenants into occupancy. It's getting things ready so that we could start generating income for that property. I'll give you some examples. I had a single family in Baldwin. We had a single family in Elmont. Another one was right now is in Oceanside. These are single family properties. We've had more, extending that timeline out. We've got a single family in Queens that we're working with an owner right now internally. They're taking care of leasing on that aspect. We've had Lynbrook, we've had Manhasset, we've had a multifamily in West Valley Stream. We've got Carroll Gardens lease up that we're working with brokers in the field right now. That's where I'm headed right now. Various locations elsewhere. We've had Farmingville, which actually turned out to be a nightmare of a situation. They refused to hire property management at the perfect time when, as a result of not hiring property management, they actually experienced the leak. I think it was last year. That completely destroyed their renovated house. It was a nightmare. It was absolutely a nightmare. But we were able to get them in front of the teams that were able to take care of them within days, get an insurance adjuster to help fight any inkling or possibility that their insurance was not going to provide for insuring against this devastating, catastrophic leak. It completely destroyed the entire place. It was absolutely a nightmare. But again, we were able to call the restoration company that we're familiar with. They were able to get there within 20-30 minutes, shut off the mains to the property, get everything basically recorded, and start mitigation services immediately, and then report everything over to the insurance company with the aid of a public adjuster. And they ended up having it covered. Because there's always that small chance that you might be getting away with something where, your public adjuster is really going to step up and bat for you. And that's exactly what happened in that situation. But yeah, we do lease up often. A lot of what we do, again, based on my flavor of property management, is we work hand in hand with that broker. We set the expectations, again, utility costs, pets, landscaping, snow removal responsibilities, pest control responsibilities, work from home and alternative schedule clauses in the lease. My lease is 24 pages and is always going to get longer. The more that we start to nail out, what is it that we really want to have in an agreement with a tenant? Some of these tenants are like, well, in a multifamily property most recently, there was a tenant who was like, well, they're sanding the floors at 3 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm a nurse and I work, an alternative schedule, and they're interrupting my sleep schedule. And it's like nobody's, going to stop work as necessary to, turn over a vacant unit in this multifamily property between the work hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and quiet work scheduled for Saturday and Sunday, like painting and things like that, right? Nobody's going to accommodate you for that. It's like, I have an alternative schedule, or I work from home, and therefore work cannot be performed while I'm on the clock while I'm home. No, so we added a clause because I didn't want to deal with that nonsense going forward in any one of my leases, and I issued like 7 leases after that. And that was earlier this year. So they're all, every so often I'll add a lease addendum that pertains to a particular situation that we can start indemnifying or start drawing out. What is it exactly that we're trying to get in an agreement here? What's the expectation that we're looking to set? So that's why my leases get longer every single year. There's always something that I'm adding, right? Pool addendum, or hot tub addendum, things like that, dealing with specific issues and specific concerns. Sometimes I'm renting out properties in a condo or a co-op, and we have to work with that existing management company for that condo or co-op. I'm just managing one unit or several units in that condo or co-op, and we have to set the expectation for the tenant of what level of accessibility do they have as a result of renting from an owner who owns the condo or co-op. Like, do they get all the amenities and benefits, like the pool, the gym, the tennis court, the basketball court, the playground? Like, what level of access do they have that they're granted? So we work with those situations as well. Again, working with a broker, setting the expectations in the listing. We don't manage the listing itself. We don't go there, take the pictures, watch the post, go up and show up to properties, open doors 60 times a week. for one property. We don't do that kind of stuff. We let the brokers do their brokering stuff. But, it's all under the premise that we want to work with the broker to get the most qualified applicants that make the most sense. And again, it doesn't always mean it's the richest person or the person with the most money in the bank account. It's the person that's always going to be the best fit for whatever reason that makes sense for the client, the person who owns the property. And that way, when it comes down to the day-to-day management that we take over for the day that they sign the lease, we can have some level of expectation that this person is not going to be the level of headache that landlords want to avoid, regardless of whether or not they're in a slumlord activity or they're really giving good product. Doesn't matter about that, categorizing the landlord. There's a level of expectation or a level of peace that they can rely on, that, the application process went as clean, as professional, as good as possible to get this landlord the fit that they need, knowing that their property is going to be taken care of by the teams that they hired, right? So, setting the expectation with the broker and the listing services, and then also reviewing the application. So I'm a stickler for reviewing applications. I love delving into people's financial history, right? So, and this goes hand in hand with another video that I posted is, get the apartment. What is it that you have to be? What is it that you have to do in order to get an apartment, right? What level of documentation do you need to satisfy to get into an apartment today? I've got a landlord in Astoria where it's like, Shen, we want these people, and I don't see a financial document. It's like a handshake deal with this guy, right? And it's a multifamily property, and this is an owner who, basically bought from the prior owner who I used to manage for, and now that it's sold, they decided to keep me on board, for whatever reason. I'm there, and it's like, what do you want me to do? Do you just want me to write leases for you guys? And it's like, we're not doing any review of application processes or anything like that. Is anybody getting paid for these services? Nope. It's like, we just need you to write the lease. Okay, send me IDs. That's it. It's like, I don't even know if these people, I don't know anything about these people. I don't see a W-2 or a 1099 or $20. I don't see anything. So it's not my problem. If these people decide to squat, it's like, there's a process and you're avoiding it, and that's fine. As long as it isn't in writing that I'm responsible for any windfall of anything that you decide to do that's in your nature, that can be construed as a liability as a management company. Is like, I'm totally okay with whatever you do and however you perform at your property. Not my problem. Write off. And this is one of those situations. And then, we work hand in hand with brokers, who are issuing us applications, and we're reviewing this paperwork, and it's like, nope. It's like, absolutely not. And they're like starry-eyed about an application, right? And it's like, these people are amazing. And I'm looking at this document, and you could tell that it's straight from AI. And it's like, look, it's like, by any chance they have documentation that could prove a level of consistency needed, right? That is not AI generated, or here are the red flags of this application process that leave me just a bit curious on, how is it that they come up with these numbers? It's like, we've got 1040s that are being issued by AI, right? That, you could tell. It's like, these numbers don't even add up. It's like, subtract line 45 from 46, subtract line 46 from 45, and, this is the total, and it's like, $5,000 off. It's like, something's not right here, It's like, this, it's like, there's no level of perfection that's ever going to come in an application process. There's always going to be some question that we have, right? For example, most recent application, it's like, do you really, we got a really good application for a single family property. I'm sitting in a group chat with 2 brokers and an owner. And, it's the nerve-wracking moment where this piece of property is of high sentimental value to this owner. And the decision-making process of whether or not they're going to opt for, a rental for the first time in their life, right? Get this property up and running as a rental. Or if they're going to commit to a sale is, the first step in becoming a landlord. It's like, what is it that I could really do with this property that's now mine, or jointly in a partnership or whatever type of entity structure, right? Between however many number of people. So, I'm sitting in this group chat, and, we're reviewing the one application that we have for this property so far. And, I gave it my blessing. I said, look, I'm in review of all the financial related documents, and we're going based off of, everything that's provided. And here's the consistency that I see. Here's the level of, here's the caliber of client that, tenant that you're looking at. Here's some check marks, here's some red flags, here's some yellow flags. It's like, whatever it is that you want to do, just know that if you want to weigh your options against another one or two applications, it's like, we told the broker, and the broker's on the same page. It's like, they're going to continue showing the property until we have leases signed and checks cashed. So up until that day, it's like, we're showing the property. Not me, but the brokers are going to show the property. It's like, until then, you have a decision to make. It's like, you could gamble and roll the dice, knowing that an application like this is probably going out to maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different apartments right now. And any one of those apartments can be cashed in, and you lose your chance to get this person to rent from you, right? And, that might just be it. It's like, you could lose this one, or you could take the gamble and see if there's a better fit. And we can't guarantee that, because these levels of applications that are coming in, we see 30, 40 of them per rental. By the time that the broker has sifted through just the minutia of applications, we get to see maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 of them, and we're reviewing them actively. And I'm sending some of them back, and it's like, some of them, sometimes I do, when it gets closer to, we have a few applications that we're going to hold on to, and, just give me a week or two to see if there's anything else that trickles in, and we can compare to those. Sometimes we're like, we get very clear instructions on my management company's rental application process. It's like, if you don't have all of the documents in a nice, neat format provided, it's like, your application is incomplete. It's like, if you can't follow simple instructions, like, when you're in school and there's like directions, and it's like, fill in the dots, or circle the answer that best fits the description, or whatever it is, right? And then there's like the sneak question where it's like, put your pencil down, like in the directions it says, put your pencil down and raise your hand. And nobody in the class does it because they didn't read the directions. That's basically life. That's a life standard. Like, don't read the directions, right? Because people are just gonna do whatever they think is necessary. They're gonna send in these applications, and they're totally incomplete. And half of the time we're bouncing, requesting the information that we've already asked for the first time. So, we'll sometimes just cancel those applications because, if you can't listen to the directions, that's your problem. But that's what leasing is, basically. And then compliance. What is the level of compliance that's necessary in order to sustain good housing? And in the city of New York, that's becoming an ever-increasing risk management, essentially, is what it is, risk management. In the compliance sense, it's anything from posting a notice in the common area of the building, right? Like a multifamily dwelling notice, fire escape plan, building MDR, like, your multiple dwelling registration number, contact information for the porter or the management company. Some of the more recent demands from the city of New York is posting notices on the back of every door in every apartment regarding like a fire escape preparation plan, posting, certain notices again in the hallways. What else? Having operational intercoms, having appropriate doors installed, like fire-rated doors installed, all the way down to, pest control initiatives that must be complied with in order to, remove HPD-related violations. And they'll send inspectors in there who will write these violations up. So these are like compliance issues that, New York City landlords and condos and co-ops have to deal with, mold-related stuff, water leak abatement things. Again, having the proper documentation, abating certain, illegal conditions, like, having somebody live in an illegally converted basement. HPD and DOB will go in there and they'll issue summonses and fines and fees and things like that. Dealing with fire safety, 5-year hydrostatic pressure tests or 5-year residential flow tests. Preparing documents to remedy certain sprinkler system violations. Dealing with scaffolding issues for major renovation projects, things like that. Having proper permits in place. Dealing with inspections, things like that, right? All these, anything that can be deemed as okay, like all the way down to smoke CO detectors, like replacing batteries or working with tenants to replace units, for their safety. Again, these are the kinds of things that we work with landlords, tenants, and owners. And vendors to negotiate, some type of agreement to get work done. So those are the 4 categories. Again, we're going to recap. It's bookkeeping, it's repairs and maintenance, all the way from, your common faucet leak all the way up to capital expenses. It's compliance issues and leasing. And now we're going to talk about, what are the different flavors of property management. Like, you've got really big firms that, can handle a 400 unit property because they have like one floor in a 7-unit building dedicated towards 30 or 40 call center people who are just ripping out work, right? And issuing it to vendors of that property manager's choice to servicemen in the area to take care of those issues, right? So you've got these really big companies that have like multifaceted aspects of property management. They have different departments sometimes that deal with just very specific aspects like AP, accounts payable, AR, accounts receivable, repairs and maintenance, your higher ups, like your corporate level people, like your CEOs and your COOs and CFOs and things like that, right? So and I've worked for a commercial real estate company that was huge. It had like over 25 locations, if I'm not mistaken, nationwide. And, the capital here was in, the headquarters was here in New Hyde Park. I was 2014 to 2016, I was working with them, and they ran they ran an international operation. And since then, they've kind of narrowed it down to selling off their offshore accounts and their partnerships so that they could focus on, national developments after 2008. So, and now they're starting to get into residential. They focus mainly on shopping centers as a real estate investment trust. But, working with those kinds of companies, like I get to see like how the internal structure, how things happen on the internal side, being somebody who worked in the tax department and also the job costing sector for that property management. Essentially, it was a property management company. And they were handling their own specific portfolio, their own individual portfolio of, 800 plus shopping centers at that time, which has probably been narrowed down since they were escaping. They were starting to get out of partnerships and starting to focus on just 100% owned property. What are some of the more intermediary or middle class, I guess you could kind of say, property management companies, like smaller firms, companies that are handling, your 30, 40, 50 unit buildings. They might have some outliers out there, like 400 or 500 unit buildings or 300 unit buildings, things like that, right? And then, they all the way down to your mom and pop shop like me. I'm a mom and pop shop company. I run maximum 400 units at any one given time. Helping small landlords, all the way from a single family owner all the way up until, multifamily, just under 100 units per property. Giving people an opportunity to experience what it's like to work with somebody who is extremely hands-on, providing the necessary white glove service to provide that level of care for clients on a day-to-day basis, right? And I could only do that because I've mastered the art of micromanagement, and also getting people the level of service that understanding what that client needs such that I can be of service when it comes to getting things done in a property management aspect in any one of those 4 categories, right? So that's how I've worked. Smaller other companies, we understand the same language, but we don't perform the same way. So it's something I could only compare to based on the fact that I am a small, mom and pop shop property management company. I can't compare to an intermediary firm or a larger firm running, departments, essentially. It's like it doesn't compare. But some of the things that basically I was able to find out being a mom and pop shop company is that I fit in with mom and pop shop clients, small companies, LLC, condos and co-ops, 10 units and under are a lot more. There's a lot more of those to manage than there are, 100, 200, 300 unit buildings, which is like the big fish everybody's fighting for, right? So these smaller property management companies where we're grabbing, a handful of them a year, sifting out some of the stuff, just making sure that we're all on the same page. Some expectations that are being set out there for like, what is the dream property management company? Is like, dream property management company is the property management company that looks at you and sees a dream. And it's like, that doesn't exist because there's no client that's a dream, right? So you can't, that doesn't work one way, right? Like you can't want a dream of a property management company and not be a dream of a client yourself. Like that stuff doesn't exist, right? You have to reciprocate that same level of peace of mind, essentially, right? And I've worked with people who were just an absolute pleasure to work with. I've got people who are like, yeah, we're going to pay the bill. It's like, let's just get it done. Schedule it in. 15 grand bill. Wouldn't bat a fucking eye about it, And then I got people crying over $40, It's like, I got a property that just got a $50 fine for not putting their trash in an NYC official bin. Well, regardless, that requirement has been extended till September, but they still put bags out for the trash day. And they got a ticket for $50. And I wrote them back last night. I said, look, guys, you're going to pay more. When it comes on city pay, I'll pay you $50. We tell all our clients is like, by the time you try fighting it, like you've already spent way more money than was the cost in time, money, and headache, just paying off a $50 bill. And the city of New York has its own agenda on like why they do that kind of stuff, because sometimes it's completely illegitimate. But I'm not here to identify those kinds of things. I'm just here to say, by the time you pay me to fight that or discover whether or not it was true, it's like the amount of money I'm going to charge you is 4, 5, 6 times the amount of what it would cost to just pay it off. So we just paid off, and it's $50, and people cry about it. It is what it is, but not my problem. But those are the flavors of property management companies. And what makes sense? How does a property manager set themselves apart from the other categories of property management companies, as well as other property managers or property management companies in that same category? So again, we got big fish property management companies, something where like, if you got a portfolio of 1,000, 2,000 units, you're going for a big company. Like you don't want a small mom and pop shop. There's not going to be a good fit unless that person really has some good stuff to say. It's like, you could go well with me because I want to be a big property management company and I need you as my anchor client. It's like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make you sign that $1 million check. It's like, what would it take for you to just give me the opportunity to really sort this shit out for you in a way where even the big property management companies can't get it done? It's like, I have the vision. It's like, I know what I need to do. I have the tools in place. Here's how. And you could get a transitionary contract that really completely changes the game, right? But, what is going to set these people apart, right? So first you have to ask a couple of questions. Like, what really makes sense about managing this building that I have, right? You ask a property manager that. It's like, look, we're a good fit because X. Or here's what makes sense about managing this building. The experience, the idea, or even just hearing like, hey, look, I really don't think we're a good fit. I think you're a bit over what our bread and butter is. But here's the level of expectation you can have as we sort things out for you. 1 month from now, 2 months from now, 6 years from now. Here's what that's going to look and feel like. Here's the level of service that we're known for providing, whether or not you're, 1 unit or 100 units. Excuse me. And you can, work with that property manager to kind of flesh out this idea of what this is going to look and feel like, right? And, you're looking for somebody who's just going to tell you the truth. It's like, look, as much as I would love to help you, we tell clients potential clients all the time, it's like, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. By the time you pay me a property management fee, there's going to be no money left over for you to actually get work done at this property. It's like, it won't work out for you. It's like, I'm not going to lower my prices because of that either. That's just the way the market is. It's like, I'm charging you X, and based on the numbers that you're telling me, it's like, I just don't see, unless you're coming out of pocket, a lot of money per month to just get shit taken care of. It's like, you've got a roof leak, you've got multiple roof leaks that your tenant is complaining about, you've got one who's in arrears, you got one tenant out that owes you X amount of dollars, and now you got the new tenant in and there's multiple issues inside the apartment. You got this tenant who has never complained in the last 24 years, pays his rent on time, never gives you an issue, and just in an effort to shut him up, like he's 50% below market value on this rent, right? And you've got major issues in the basement, and you show up on site for a meeting and you're like, okay, so where's the gas meters? And this landlord doesn't even know where the gas meters are, right? And it's like, as a property manager, having gone on interviews, monthly, seeing these levels of understandings of like what landlords are embracing as far as their portfolio. I go in there and I'm like, look, like, here's as far as I can help you out. Like, here's a couple of recommendations. Here's a roofing company. Here's a locksmithing company. Here's an audio visual guy. Here's a handyman. Here's a plumber. Here are the people that I've known to take care of the property in a way where you'll have the peace of mind knowing that things are taken care of the first time. Like, and it's good. They're going to charge you. They're not going cheap. Get a roofer out on your property to do some work, and it's going to cost you a minimum $500-$600. Like, I ain't lying about that, but my guys charge because that's what it takes. It takes that level of money to give everybody the peace of mind knowing that things are taken care of, and that's what we're going for. We're not going for $100, $200, repairs anymore. They're costing every minimum is going to be at least $400 or $500. Like, that's the expectation that we're setting as a property management company now. It's like, look, you have to go into every single repair. Every single call that I take is going to be a potential $400 bill for you. And it's like, how much calls do you expect me to get? And it's like, you as a landlord, you as a condo co-op have to be able to answer that. It's like, we expect X. Do you have a budget that fits that? So these are the kinds of things that going into, sorting out whether a property manager is a good fit. It's okay to ask or be asked, having been asked as a client, a potential client, what is it that you're really in for? What level of headache is it that you're really in for? How do you know your numbers? We go on interviews all the time where, I interviewed with a 60-unit condo in Nassau County, and I show up, and I'm there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I hear this story about this condo, right? So I get the verbal side of the story where we're talking, and their property management company isn't answering the phone, or things aren't being done in a timely manner, or this is the problem, vendors aren't getting paid until 3 months later. And, they're not showing up on site and doing X, Y, and Z. And I show up and I'm like, okay, guys, like, what's your numbers? And they don't know. Like, they haven't seen a monthly report in 16 months. They don't even know what's going on in their bank account. They don't even own their bank account, right? This property management company establishes a separate bank account, like a trust account, and they just funnel money into this trust account and then deal out the income and expense, deal the income and expenses and the bookkeeping stuff in an account not even owned by the condo. And it's like, all right, it's like, there's only so much of a conversation that I could have with people who don't understand the most fundamental aspect about real estate, their numbers, right? And I immediately, it's like, my level of commitment to ensuring that I get this property management contract goes from 95% to 2%, because I'm just like, I really don't want to be in for this nonsense. It's like, at what point am I really going to be able to sort out decades worth of issues due to a failed property management systems that these people are buying time and time again. And it's like, that's what Long Island and New York City is. It's just failed property management, attempts at property management companies that, oversell and underperform, or don't give that like level, don't even have the understanding of what it takes to be a property manager in the first place, right? And we'll go over a couple of those qualities later today, in this video. So stay tuned. The most important thing when looking for a property manager, again, is identifying what level of services do they provide and what systems do they have in place to help you get from point A to point B in your investment, in your careers, essentially, as an investor, right? Whether it's a condo co-op, whether it's a commercial building, single-family residential, multifamily residential, or a slew of portfolios, right? And I'll give you an example. We this was like the last time that I gave a deal, because it's like you give a deal to a slumlord, like they're walking all over you, man. So I gave a deal to a slumlord. It was like an Astoria, four building, like 10 units in between 4 buildings, slumlord in Astoria. And just bottom of the barrel slumlord. I mean, this guy would rather not pay somebody to go and clean the front yards and let dog shit accumulate in front of their property, like just nonsense, and then call me up and tell me to take care of it. And it's like, my job is not to show up to your property every single day ensuring success. My job is just to take phone calls and make sure shit gets done. It's like, what level of headache are you in for? So time and time again, and it's like, this guy was like, I'm a property manager and I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm looking for somebody to take over my portfolio, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you see the way that he's treating his tenants and his vendors and stuff like that. And half of these guys aren't even showing up on time, let alone wanting to do like the slumlord level work that this guy's asking. It's like, this is the kind of work that like only a slumlord could think is possible. It's like he has a hole in he had a hole in like in a pre-molded shower enclosure. Like literally, it was a hole in the wall of this precasted shower enclosure, right? And he put caulking on this thing, right? And like it started falling apart, and like behind the wall, you could just tell is like there's mold growing behind the wall, like because it's like actively the water, as these tenants are showering, there's water that's actively getting behind this hole. So it's like, dude, just replace the fucking precast, like just replace it, dude. Like why go through the headache of having to deal with anything else? So I ended up firing the guy because I was like, absolutely the fuck not. I think what got me on that one was the guy asked me, do you know the 3 different types of flat roofs? And I go, shut the fuck up, dude. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like this guy's trying to battle people who do this for a living. It's like, do you know what the 3 different types of flat roofs are? And it's like, yeah, flat, and flatter. It's like flat, flatter, and flattiest, right? If that's a word, but it's like I didn't have time to argue with somebody who was so dead set on being the know-it-all, right? It's like I don't have time to work with people. It's like I don't claim to know 3 different types of flat roofs at all. It's like I'm not the expert here. It's like, let me ask my guy and we'll get back to you. And the guy actually went to one of his properties and gave him like a $30,000 quote, because it's just been so deteriorated to the point where the guy was walking on the roof and like literally like a board broke, like a section broke. But these are the kinds of things that you have to decide what you're out for, what level of expectation you want to set with your property management company, and what is that conversation going to look and feel like for you when on the interview process. How is it that you guys think that you're a good fit? It's like I'm really inviting a question here. How is it that you guys think you're a good fit for a property portfolio like mine, single family residential? It's like we tell people who call us up all the time, it's like, look, I'm not going to guarantee you anything. Like this is real estate 101. It's like by the time that you guys move out or have any type of move to get things taken care of so that you could get this place rent ready, is like some shit is going to hit the fan. It's like, I'm going to tell you right now, it's like things are going to spiral into a $10, $20, $30,000 project. So you have to decide that ahead of time. It's like, are you willing to commit, to getting things up and running such that you're going to maximize the rental, you know, because like we go into these houses and like, you know, things are done from like the 70s and 80s, and it's like, look, I'm not going to be the market guy. I'm not going to tell you how to play the market, but you know, you're going to have to speak with brokers who are more qualified in giving you the level of expectation of what your rental is going to go for, and we shoot them some information. It's like, I'll give you what online says, no problem, but you know, speaking with brokers are going to be your priority. But we tell them all the time, it's like, look, this is my bread and butter, and you know, we handle buildings 10 units and under is majority of the buildings in our portfolio. You know, we have some outliers, we have some properties that are larger than 10 units, you know, and those are slowly starting to go away as these multifamily residential properties, you know, 20, 30, 40 units are being sold or moving on to another property manager. But, you know, our bread and butter is 10 units and under. We're known for providing that level of service, integrating property management company into these people's day-to-day, you know, integrating these levels of property management so that we remain the company to call if there's ever an issue. You know, I'd rather know about an issue ahead of time than having to deal with the windfall of damage as a result of not being told that there's been a small water leak that has been slowly deteriorating, you know, a subfloor system or something like that, right? So, and also, it's pretty funny. I had a condo board president call me the other day, and he's like, Shen, we need to shoot for landlord specials. And I tell him, and I'm like, it's like, it's going to be your responsibility trying to find landlord special prices. It's like, not me. You know, it's like, I'll do my best, but it's like, I'm kind of a one and done when it comes to projects under $5,000 now. It's like preferably under $100,000, but I understand that you guys are, you know, low income housing condo co-op owners in the middle of Brooklyn. It's like, that's what every new construction is, low income housing, because you just get low income housing people buying new construction. That's really what it is. It's like, I got a call the other day, and it was like, you know, I bought a new construction 19 unit property in Astoria, or somewhere up over there, Flushing or something like that. And it was like, you know, we're going through, we've hired a legal team, and you know, I got recommended by an attorney where I'm managing a project right now. And that attorney forwarded me this person's contact information because they were self-managing but can't do it anymore. And I hop in on a call, and like I'm sourcing out like, what is it that these people are after, right? And they're constantly like putting more pressure on themselves on, you know, the expectation that they have for a property management company. And I just had to back out of that situation. I had to say, like, you know, I could show up and I could do a really good job. I could manage the communications on the capital sense, get an idea of what's going on, get the professionals in there, the architects and engineers, schedule probing, you know, get the results, discuss that with a couple of companies, and, you know, do help assist with the bid leveling project, you know, in a way where somebody else is spearheading the operations, preferably the architect and engineer of choice, but, you know, getting the level of headache where things are not going to be left, the ball is not going to be left not rolling, essentially. So keep the ball rolling on these projects. I'm really good at that kind of stuff, while also day-to-day management, compliance, bookkeeping, things like that, right? You know, day-to-day miscellaneous repairs and maintenance. But, you know, when in on the interview process, also I have another video where it's like somebody spawned 40 questions in an interview process, and I just said, look, like, hop on a phone call, dude, you know, and I didn't get a response back. You know, it's like, you know, you could tell ahead of time is like when people are just going to be a fucking headache for you. You know, me as a person who specializes in micromanagement, where we're constantly getting people, you know, to remain accountable for the work that they signed up for. It's like, if you want work, charge it. You know, we're not going to be afraid to charge you the money necessary to satisfy the vendors. It's like, you know, you guys signed up for multi-million-dollar real estate investments in the one area where everybody wants to seem to move into, you know, New York City and Long Island. You know, you can't afford to live here, you know, then either one, hire another property manager, or two, pay the bill and shut up. You know, that's where we've gone now. But having to micromanage and specialize in these smaller properties, like, we have to also set the level, you know, within that category. Like, there's some bottom of the barrel clients, like people who don't want to sweep up dog poop in front of their property, and then expect their property manager to show up and do shit like that, right? It's like, no, fired. And then there's people who, you know, they're like, Shen, we just want to get it done. just send somebody out there, get it done. It's like, you already manage the books. Just go ahead and get it paid. Just send me a distribution check. So you set the expectations on those kinds of things, and you get to either work really well with that property manager, or it gets to be a failed attempt and you move on, right? And that's why some of the non-negotiables for a contract, we'll talk about that too right now. Some of the non-negotiables for a property management contract: 30-day back out clause at least, or at minimum a 30-day back out clause. Like some of my back out clauses are 10 days for single family properties, 10, 15 days. And also like immediate back out clauses if there's something that's been advised by the management company and the landlord refuses, and it causes like a windfall, cascading, self-perpetuating damage cycle where it's like, now it's like I hit the ejectocito cuz and I'm out of there. And it's like, good luck. It's like I wouldn't want to bleed over this contract and having to spend the unnecessary amount of work that it would take to mitigate your headache now that you're bleeding. It's like I'm not the ER, I'm not ER management. I'm essential management. Get your essentials together. So we hit the ejectocito cuz on a few properties because it's just like there's nothing going on here that I could help out with. It's like mental issues are not something that I specialize in as far as dealing with the contract that I have for property management. That's not my specialty as a property manager, dealing with your mental issues. But these are the things that going into a property management search you guys can start implementing. Again, 30-day back out clause. You own your bank accounts. Never settle for a property manager to open up a bank account for you, unless it's like, the portfolio that is necessary for that level of trust to have in that property management company. Again, I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of a mom and pop shop property manager that specializes in managing mom and pop shop condos and co-ops, single family, small multifamily properties, small commercial properties. You're going to want those properties. Those properties should own their bank account, whether it's in an LLC or a single family, a single person's name or whatever it is, right? So own the property, own the bank account for the property, grant the manager some level of access to it, so that they could incorporate it into their property management software to allow tenants to pay online or things like that, right? And then also give them, set certain parameters. Like, what is it that you're really in for? Like, what level of headache are you allowing your property manager to manage? Like, are they just paying service contracts and then everything above that is going to be discussed, whether it's, buying bags from Amazon or sending somebody out to repair some sheetrock damage that occurred during a move-in? Like, are you okay with just having your property manager spend a couple of $100 per incident, or are you really communicating with that property manager on a basis to just next step certain functions, right? So these are the kinds of things that you have to decide what level of commitment that you're in for by that property manager to get you the level of information that you need to make decisions at this property. Whether it's a bookkeeping thing like increasing maintenance or increasing rents, repairs and maintenance, like scheduling out certain types of work to get things done, or setting a level of expectation on how are things going to get done when it comes to these kinds of maintenance issues. And then leasing, of course, scheduling, what is it going to take to turn this apartment over to get it rent ready? Do you want to do the landlord special? It's like, get a porter in there for $800 and paint the whole thing, but they're painting your kitchen cabinets. Like, they're going to go in there with a spray gun and just spray everything, spray all the light fixtures. And it's like, then you deal with it. And it's like, I'm not going to go in there and clean up. It's like, I'm not. But, or are you going to chip in the amount of money necessary to reduce the headache, knowing that you're going to maximize the rental value on that property? Are you in? And then compliance, it's like, as New York City is ever increasing on their required level of safety protocol, facade inspections, day-to-day operations expenses, paperwork required, things like that, right? Mold issues, things like that. Level of lead in paint, surface paint. are you in or are you out? So making that decision as a landlord is also very important, or a condo co-op board. And then, I said I was going to discuss something. I forgot what it was, but okay, yeah. So, you got your flavors. So what really sets a property manager? Now that we're talking about mom and pop shop property management companies, right? What is it that a property management company is looking for when they're hiring an individual property manager, or what is it that a property manager is looking to do when they're running their own company, like somebody like me, right? Like a mom and pop shop. What's the goal? And we've seen tons of different goals. Like some people, they're, failed brokers that decided to add some ancillary income as a property management company. So like they're brokering out deals, and, they throw out there, hey, like landlord, or hey, new buyer of this multifamily building. It's like, I do property management. We do pretty much everything. And then it's, all the networking opportunities that happen as a result of that, or the learning opportunities that happen as a result of that. We've seen that. Then there's people who, have worked with another property management company, and after 10, 15 years have their broker's license, or, something like that. And, they decide to sign up for their own level of headache, like running their own property management company and things like that, right? So, for me, it was an opportunity to buy an existing business that, was ready to fall apart at any given moment's notice, right? So I was willing to take on this level of headache and buy an existing property management company's contracts in an effort to elevate my life. So my goal as a property manager was always to elevate my lifestyle, right? And go from employee to employer, everybody's dream. I came from selling candy in middle school, and selling SD cards for PSPs in middle school, and selling candy in middle school, looking to achieve drop shipping level, commitments for Air Jordans, figuring out how is it that I could get this person a payment of $20 without a credit card, so that I could buy their list of wholesalers or drop shipping companies so that I could sell on eBay, right? Who is it that I can work with as a 13-year-old to drop ship, Jordans and things like that, right? So I was always of that creative aspect of my mindset, right? It was just, I was always after some level of business 101 or things like that. And that's just who I was. I've been working since I was 12, essentially. So always doing these kinds of things it was just natural for me to want to get out of, the accounting field and get more into a business ownership. And accounting was only going to take me so far. Like I would literally have to have become a CPA in order for me to get the level of lifestyle that I have right now. And even as a CPA, I probably wouldn't have the level of lifestyle that I have right now. But, I was able to work for a property management company and then buy it eventually. Essentially the majority of the contracts from that existing property management company, buy that and start managing and sorting out the level of headaches that I was essentially, now the owner of. I was the owner of the headaches that this person was trying to get rid of. I was able to sort that out. It included a whole lot of sleepless nights, and a whole lot of self-development. But, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We got it done, right? So now when I show up to these property management, opportunities, I get to really say, what level of headache do I really want here today? It's like we deal with all different types of nonsense, and sometimes the nonsense has to move out to get in a better class of nonsense, right? So, I got started in property management company. I really wanted to hit the ground running as this owner of this property management company now, or newly developed property management company that purchased assets to get started. My goal was to provide the highest level of care and service so that I can give my owners the peace of mind that they need to know that their property is taken care of. Condo co-op boards, single family, multifamily, residential, commercial. We had a wide variety of onboarded clients with that purchase. And we got rid of most of them. I think from that purchase, I had 13 or 14 different contracts, or 15 or 16 different contracts, something like that. And I have only 2 left from that original purchase. And what is it that that a company is going to do? How is it that they're going to sell their services? Like, do they show up? Like, we've asked our clients, like, what really invited you to hire this property management company? What really made sense? And it's the same process that you could see when you are the property manager for this company or this condo co-op board or this individual. You get to see the opportunity that, what is it that they do during the hiring process? Like, what really makes sense for them? Like, how do they interview their landscaping companies, or how do they interview X, Y, and Z company? How do they do their service contracts when they're negotiating certain responsibilities for this property? And you get to see like some of the shopping around that they do, or like what are the strategies that they know are going to give them the highest quality for the biggest bang for the buck, right? So you get to see the opportunities where you get to see what their sales process is, or just ask as well. We ask these companies sometimes, like, what really made sense to hire this manager such that, like, now it doesn't make sense. It's like, this manager's been dealing with us for 15, 20 years. Now they're starting to get off the ball, and, their back office is not really getting the work done necessary to ensure quality success. Our vendors are going, 2-3 months without getting paid. And, the communication's not there, right? Then I show up on site and I see exactly what's going on. It's like, I don't really think this is possibly a property management company issue as much as it is a board issue, right? Or an owner issue. And some of those things you can't save as a property management company. Like, sometimes the damage is just done. It's like, look, I could minimize the windfall of damage that you had. It's kind of like, you sit on the doctor's table and the doctor says you got cancer, and it's like, oh, okay, the doctor can't save you from all the damage that you've done to yourself, or the damage that this thing has done, to you over the course of time. But we can develop some kind of protocol where we can mitigate the damage from the past, but also develop a healthy system for the future and guarantee as much as possible the success if you stick to the protocol, right? And we shoot for that level of care when we're dealing with these property management contracts. We try to give them the amount of we try to give them that level of hope, or that level of care that we set the expectations. Like, look, I'm not a miracle worker. Like, completely understand that I may not be a good fit, but the damage is done by people who thought that they were running the show in the perfect way possible for you. And here are some of the examples that we see when, upon reviewing this paperwork. Is like, you guys are cutting X, Y, and Z checks for work that shouldn't have costed, 10% of that. Or, here's where you've been bleeding. There's been active, damage mitigation. You could have potentially developed certain levels of, you could have actively developed certain levels of protocol, right, to help get your property from point A to point B in the least painful way as possible, that just nobody really cared enough to see that for you or give you that opportunity. Or they may have given you that opportunity, and now your job as an owner or a condo co-op board was to follow that protocol, or follow that recommendation, or follow that lead. And now your building is now you're trying to jump from a burning a burning pit of fire, from the frying pan into the fire, looking for a property management company that's going to be like, saving, offer some type of saving grace or olive branch, for as free as possible to come and save your property. Like, it doesn't exist. And I've done that before. Like, I've literally extended olive branches. Like, we've given slumlords and just condo co-op boards, absolutely great deals and then you just get into the nitty gritty of it, and it's like, all right, like, I'm just gonna sit back and collect my money until I get fired, because this is the level of headache where it's like there's nothing that I can do and say that's ever gonna solve that. So what is it that you can do to identify the different flavors in property management companies, so that you could hire the best property manager that's a good fit for you? again, it's setting expectations. What is it that you as an owner, what is it that you as a condo co-op board really understand about the level of care that needs to be provided for your building? Like, what are you guys doing right now? What is your current property management company doing right? And what is it that they need to improve on? What is your level of communication? Because again, like, are you jumping from the frying pan into the fire? Is there a level of expectation that you could set right now with your current situation so that you can communicate that to your existing network of service providers, including a property management company, vendor system, security, roofing company, plumber, things like that, right? What is it that you could do to kind of jump in there and take control of the bleeding and now move this project forward or this portfolio forward for whatever purpose that may serve you? Asking the right questions. Again, it's like, what is this going to look and feel like for us if we decide to work with your firm? Like, we're trying to get a good idea of how this is going to help us. And you get a property manager who's in there who's going to totally give you baloney. 90% of them are going to give you baloney if they answer the phone, first of all. That's the first hurdle. We hop in on some of these calls, like we take them, the phone rings, Mike in my office answers it, and he's like, yep, no problem, I'll get you in touch with Shen, I'll let him know. In the meantime, schedule something online, that way you could, rest assured knowing that you'll get in contact with him one way or another. And, and that's all fine and dandy. What is it that's going to look and feel like for you as an owner, getting a good level of sorting out your own bullshit so that you could go into these property management company interviews and just ask them, like, what's really important about having a contract like this? Like, what is it that I need to focus on so that I could do my job, so that I could invite you guys to my portfolio and do the best that I can as a landlord tenant, do the best that I can as a condo co-op board, so that you could go in there and just run the show as best as possible as a property management company, and we can take care of the things that we need to take care of, like decision-making processes or sorting out certain types of information or just taking care of certain issues that we wouldn't want our property manager to, mull over the minutia or the headache of, right? So, setting those expectations is going to be number one. Number two is actually executing, giving it a try. Inviting some level of reality that is agreed upon, right? Because we go on interviews all the time, and we set the expectations like, I do not live at your property. I do not want to live at your property. I do not want to live near your property enough to be available, to physically go over there. It's like 90% of issues that I deal with can be solved within the first call, within 15, 20 minutes, by just having that tenant or that occupant or that owner get me the information that I need so that I could get this off to the person that can resolve that issue. Like, that's just that simple. Like, I don't need to show up to the property with every single faucet leak. And neither do property management companies offer that, regardless of what's written in their contract. It's like, I will show. It's like when I bought the contracts to the other property management company. Like in that contract, it was like, we'll have a representative visit your property once a week. And it's like, no. It's like, we got to work on that. And some properties I went over and above my responsibility as a property manager to ensure a level of success. And then I've ended up getting fired. And that teaches you a harsh lesson about reality. It's like, people are just going to do whatever they want to do. They're just going to do what they want to do. It's their portfolio. It's their asset. It's their liability. It's like, I'm just here to get you a good idea of like what exactly is going on in your portfolio, in your building, and you get to make decisions. And that way, like, I keep my hands out of your nitty gritty and I do exactly what I'm contracted to do, and that's it. My head hits the pillow knowing that I did my exact best. I did exactly what I was contracted to do. Not a penny more, not a penny less. And it's worked for me this far. I think this is the flavor of property management that has really given me the lifestyle where I could get up every single day. I could shoot video like this while I'm on the way to deal with somebody's headache. Even though I don't have to, but it's like, I'll get up and I'll make $500, no problem. I'll charge you. For a 2-hour drive, you're like, yeah, I'll make $500. No, not a problem. Why not? We'll solve some problems, sure. But going in there and asking questions, sorting out the hoo-ha, and, that's just the kind of stuff that I'm good at, and now, just like everybody else, prices go up, and you're just going to have to pay that. As the years go by and we start working with more and more clients, our pool of people that we want to deal with gets smaller and smaller, and that's the concept of the revolving door when it comes to a property management company. Is you have to go into these property management contracts expecting that they just may not be a good fit. They may be a good fit this year, but maybe next year not. What is it that you could do as a landlord? What is it that you could do as a condo co-op board so that you could pivot as necessary to give you guys the space and the idea of, okay, contracts don't work, 30-day clause, back it out, go and hire another property management company, or a copy of this, another version of this service provider. What is it that we can do? How is it that we can do that? How is it that we could get the understanding of our property so that we could pivot, we could learn to get those kinds of understandings, to communicate this actively so that we're not at the mercy of any one property service provider. In property management, I think it's the easiest thing to do, because it's like, get your one-on-ones taken care of, get your bookkeeping sorted out, get your document retention sorted out, get your understanding of what compliance and maintenance is looking like, your service providers for, other contracts, get all that sorted out. So when you go into a property management interview, it's like, here's kind of how we're running it right now. It's like, we would love to integrate your services into this and kind of, make recommendations as necessary, so that we can consider it. Other than that, it's just day-to-day management. Here's what we expect. And now you're setting the tone. Now you're setting the idea of like, what is it? And we work well with those people who are able to set those expectations. Again, they're looking to give things a shot. And it may not be perfect the first time. It may not be perfect at all. I might be coming into a complete headache 90% of the time. And we start with that level of expectation. It's like, we set the tone. It's like, look, I just don't know what level of headache I'm signing up for. It's like, here's the information that I need to really get you guys a good idea of how good of a fit that I could be. Like, where are your numbers? What's your budget looking like? It's like, what is it that you can do in the event of an emergency that would give me the ability to take care of that thing front to back? What is this going to look and feel like if I have to make a phone call to get an approval and I don't get an answer within, half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour? It's like, do I have complete authority to just get that work done and give you guys a $7,000 bill? Like, what would that look and feel like for you guys? It was like, that would completely end my investing career. And it's like, I may not be a good fit for you guys, because sometimes $7,000 bills are going to come across your desk and you have to choose to pony up the money or not. And that's the expectation that we send over. It's like, do I ever want to sign a $7 would be really great. Do I ever want to sign a $7,000 bill knowing that this potentially could have been a cheaper bill? It's like, sometimes that's what you wager, but the property has certain demands in order to get work done, and we know the people who are going to give that level of service. We're not going to shop around for every service, knowing that the potential for this problem to grow is going to outgrow any potential cost savings by shopping around up until a certain point. And as we start locking in services and vendors that are more in line with how we do business, we want to give that level of expectation. It's like, I'm not slumlord management, even though majority of my portfolio is pretty much low-income housing. But, these are the kinds of things that, setting an expectation as a property management company, setting an expectation as a condo co-op board, or as a, as a small, multifamily investor or single family investor. These are the kinds of things that you go into these kinds of negotiations, and you get to develop the tactics that are necessary to allow clear communication between you and your service provider. It's also understanding that property management companies are doing this day in and day out, 24/7, 365 days out of the year. It's like, what is the housekeeping aspect of property management? It's like, what is it that they're really doing behind the scenes that allows them to go out there and get work done right the first time, every single time? Having a dedicated list of vendors or vendors that they trust, working with clients that working with clients that may have their chosen vendors, so that I don't have to go around and get service contracts in place just because I'm the property manager now. Like, they're going to look and depend on me for that kind of stuff. Like, they may have certain vendors in place already. Working equally with the vendors that would potentially expand my network. Like, we're always actively keeping 3-4 people on call for certain aspects of management. For certain aspects of maintenance and repairs and maintenance. That way, we've had to pivot. It's like, I had a handyman. He's like, man, I ended up in the hospital, and I know that I've got these few jobs ahead of me for you. And it's like, I'm willing to get there and get it done as soon as possible. I was like, look, dude, take your rest. It's like, it's like Mike's taking care of forwarding it over to the other contractor right now. It's like, you need to rest. It's like, the last thing that I need is like sending this guy on a job and he's gonna fall from a 4-story building because I need him to clean out the gutter system on the roof. It's like, I don't need that. It's like, imagine that, right? It's like, on his climb up, he falls back and just busts his heads open. I can't have that. So we keep a handful of contractors for any one specific purpose. That way we have a good working relationship with different companies, and sometimes we have to ask that client as well, is like, who is it that you feel is a good fit for your property? We'll continue to use them. And then there's some non-negotiables, like, this is the handyman that I use, and I'm not, if you want cheaper, you guys got to go out there and shop for yourself, or here's the porter that I know to take out the trash. If you guys want to go and shop around, it's like, that's fine. It's like, I'm not going to shop around to save you $100 a month. I'm not. It's not worth my protocol. It's like, if you guys want to go ahead and do that, that's fine. It's like, it's your building, it's your responsibility. It's like, but there are certain things that I know how to do. It's like, I save the client $1,500 a year, and they still have yet to make a decision to just pay off that current vendor to get rid of them, and then save $1,500 going forward every single year. It's like they're holding on to this decision-making process for like 6 months now, and it's like, I don't have it in me to continue asking, because it's like, let them learn the lesson. It's like, I'm not going to be here to solve every one of your mommy and daddy issues. It's like, I'm here to get business done, show you the ropes, show you the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like, if you guys want to be onboarded, no problem. It's like, sometimes for some of these properties, like, I make more money dealing with less headache from smaller properties because my price goes up. I'd make more money dealing with smaller levels of headache, hour for hour, dollar for dollar. So, some of these companies, like I'm working with right now, it's like, I get in here and I'm looking at how they're running their show, and it's like, oh, it's like, they're making mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake on top of mistake, and it's like, okay, cool. It's like, I'm just going to collect my check until I get fired, or, until I really want to leave. It's like, I really just don't have the time here anymore. There's nothing that I could do to grow my management company to where I'll have to take on clients like that. It's like, that's not the kind of management company I want to run. So, it's setting those levels of expectations and getting this thing off of the ground as a property manager, just the level of expectation to get clients on board. We want to have good fits, and I think clients who could step up to that plate and also equally match on those service contracts, get a good understanding of what it's like to own real estate, be an investor, but wanting to offload this set of responsibilities as a property, essentially an owner and operator, like you're the property manager, offload certain aspects of that property management function so that, a company like mine can swoop right in, pick you up, show you the ropes, get you an idea of what things are going to look and feel like, and you give it a try. Some of our clients are very, very happy. Some of them are, questionable, but, we're on board for what it is, what things are going to look like and feel like for them. And some clients are just like, I can't wait. Can't wait for the day, where it finally makes sense. It's like, I really don't have to sit here and deal with this, because I'm not gonna say that, every property management portfolio is perfect. It's like, we're all dealing with some level of headache. We're all on board for some level of headache when it comes down to it, and it makes for great content. But these are the kinds of things, setting the expectations so that you and your client can have as much success as possible, is going to be, that's basically what it envelops as, Property Management Crash Course 101. It's setting expectations, getting a good idea of what your property management is capable of doing, what look and feel is going to be on the table, how is it that you're going to negotiate that look and feel, and just giving it a shot. Getting some non-negotiables into the contract, 30-day back out clause, no questions asked. You own everything all the way up into your bank account, all the way up to every single document needs to be digitized and provided in some type of Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, right? And then that's going to be accessible by both parties at perpetuity. That way you can always hold on to the information that you guys have. There's no property management company that you could trust. There's no property management company that you should be able to trust that you should give your bank account to them or give them the ability to manage and control all of your documents, physically. Things need to be digitized. Today's a digital age. I literally have bought a $400 Brother machine that scans 50 pages a minute or 50 or 100 pages a minute. And I've literally scanned, when I picked up that property management company's portfolio, I literally scanned every single document over the course of 4.5 months. I scanned a whole office worth. I mean, we're talking files on files on files on files on files. And I pick up property management contracts and I'm scanning boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes worth. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 different boxes worth of just paperwork that's been accumulated from these property management companies over time that they just don't want to scan it in. And I'm like, okay, it's like if you guys want to onboard, nowadays it's like I don't, it's like either your property management company or somebody from the board is going to scan that in, or you're going to pay me to scan that in. We used to include that, but now it's like it's the level of headache having to deal with people not being able to do in my opinion is the right thing the first time. It's like, hey, I have clients that we have 20 years worth of documents. It's like, let me talk to my administrative assistants, and it's like downtime is like, we need to clear out this office of all these kinds of documents. Like, let's get it digitized. Guys, come up with a solution where we can get some equipment in here to prioritize scanning. It's like you spend $1,000 on equipment to just get things out the door, right? Save you guys some space. It's like it's like you pull up to a doctor's office. Remember in the 90s and 2000s, it's like literally behind the people at the front desk, they had walls full of just files of people's medical data. It's like now all that stuff is in the system, being able to communicate through multiple different networks and groups and things like that, right? It's like property management is right there. It's like all of my files are in a Google Drive for any one individual property. It's like if you ever want to look at anything, we have it organized. Here's your building systems and here's your financial data, here's your regular documents, and here's special projects. We have it all organized. Here's your budgeting for the last couple of years, and here's your monthly reports, here's your insurance documents, and here's some one-off projects, here's the residents data and things like that. And then also having a program that's able to manage that kind of stuff. I choose Appfolio. I think Appfolio is one of the best property management companies out there that gives me just what I need to get properties taken care of. It has communication standards, and it has bookkeeping standards and information retention standards that we're familiar with and we've been using for almost a decade now. That's one of the first things that I did when I bought the property management company assets is, I reworked the business to get things digitized so that I can show up, get things done for clients in a way where they can depend on that level of service. I busted my ass for 10 years. Getting that level and that system, up and running. I actually should do a video on that. It's like how I took care of a transitionary period, dealing with property management contracts where we had to go in there, manage day-to-day stuff while also dealing with the possibility that at any given moment, like this management company could have just fell apart. Could have invested all this money, all this time, all this effort, and I could have one day just gotten up and I could have just said to everybody, what? And just totally blacked out and not deal with that, because that's kind of the industry, dealing with New York City real estate and Long Island real estate. It's like you get to deal with a lot of confusing people. So again, our goal is, as a property manager, is to kind of get you guys the information that you need to make decisions, and your job is to have that information, have that decision-making process installed and ready, so that you can make, you could try your best to own this property and try your best to manage this property in your capacity, but also hire a manager that's willing to run with you on your goals. Anyways, guys, I'm out. I'm almost in Brooklyn right now, but yeah, we're gonna take care of some business today.